Hello to all you beautiful souls. So, I got a question on how to heal abandonment issues and self worth issues. So, these are core wounds which sit in the soul, and it is said that we have 5 main core wounds. Those 5 core main wounds are said to be rejection, abandonment, treason, humiliation, and injustice. Most of us carry all 5, depending on our circumstances in our life, and we all have various amounts of these wounds which are dominant within us. So essentially, each one of these wounds has if we can call it a negative side effect in us, so a consciousness which we act out based on that. So it's a wound which forms when we were little, when we were young, and it's really got to do with our caregivers and how we were given love or how we were cared for by the people who were the foundation of how we started formulating how we fit into the world. So with all healing, the best and easiest way to heal ourselves, well, I can't say easy because it's never easy, it's through self-awareness. So knowing ourselves, knowing what those characteristics are when those wounds have been scratched open, when we've been triggered. Triggers are an amazing tool for us because as soon as we feel this pain rising in us from what somebody else did or their actions have then triggered this, it's a beautiful, beautiful indication. It's an arrow pointing, zap, that's where we need to go. So depending on who the person is who has triggered and mirrored the fact that there is pain inside of you based on your own self-worth and your own abandonment issues, you can go and you can sit down and you can write. You can try and figure out where this wound started in you. Why have you got this wound? How do you react because you have this wound? The best way to heal ourselves is to know ourselves, to have really, really deep self-awareness and understanding of who we are. Because then it's when it happens again, we can go, I remember that and that and that. So, okay, I'm going to react differently. Or sometimes we will have already been triggered, reacted the same way, and then go, oh, no, I remember now. Okay, I want to behave differently. So it's an ongoing journey of mastery. Everything in healing, everything in awakening, everything in ascension is all about mastering yourself. The deeper you know yourself, the deeper you are able to ascend. When you get to know yourself, when you get to understand what those different reactions are in you and why are they there, it's really important to understand that you are then learning your shadow. So, for example, if you have abandonment issues and somebody said they can't go somewhere with you, and this just triggered a whole feeling of inadequacy, of feeling like you're not important to somebody, of all these feelings that it creates, you need to go and you need to sit with those feelings and you need to understand those feelings. You need to feel those feelings to release those feelings. It is a process. So there are ways to kind of speed things up a little bit for yourself, and that is energy healing. There are many different modalities out there that people use, and energy healing literally speeds up our process. So it's really important to find somebody that resonates with you, and then you work. Energy healing it's an ongoing process, just like the whole healing process is an ongoing thing, because we literally just meet ourselves at deeper levels all the time. So we need to retrain ourselves. We need to start knowing that we are worthy of ourselves. When we go and we meet our shadows, these parts of us, like I was saying earlier, and I totally got sidetracked, when we're meeting those parts of ourselves, like those insecure parts, those feeling unimportant parts, those are our shadows. And how we react to it is even more of our shadows, because then, of course, we're just projecting all of this lack out onto the world and people, and then it gets reflected back in us and how we're feeling essentially about ourselves. So when we meet our shadows, really important to be very loving, very compassionate, and very kind to ourselves, as well as not resist. Because if we're just hiding it, we're hiding it from ourselves. We're not hiding it from anybody other than ourselves. The only person that we're not being honest with is ourselves. Healing requires such a deep level of honesty with yourself. You really have to be very authentic and real about what you're feeling, why, and how. Journaling is an amazing tool to really get to know yourself, especially when you're going through a rough time. Write your feelings, write the triggers, write why you triggered. No judgment, no criticism. Don't just be objective and just write. Sometimes it's like putting the stuff out and you all of a sudden can become an observer when you write. So use that as a tool to get to know yourself deeper. You can use energy healing and then understand that it's a chipping away. It doesn't just happen overnight. You need to slowly chip away until you learn to master something. When it comes to self-worth, I believe that one of the best tools we can use in self-worth is knowing our worth. And why do we need to know our worth? How do we need to know our worth? So just as it's so useful to know our shadow, it's really important to know our light, because in knowing both makes us stronger. It creates less defensiveness. It creates, when we know our shadow and somebody says, oh, you are being aloof and moany, you can go, yeah, I am. You know, it's not scary for people to point out our shadow. Actually, it's just us who make it scary that we're not seen as perfect. So we need to understand why we have those reactions in the first place. And self-worth, I found that when you really connect to your own values, your own morals, and your own principles, and that you live them. So literally observe the human being and the soul that you are. Know your value. You also need to take a lot of action to prove your value to yourself, because knowing your worth is respecting yourself. Knowing your worth is being able to set boundaries and then stick to them no matter how hard it is. So a lot of people who don't have a lot of self-worth have been through really tough lives where they have not had people not building up their confidence as a child. So you yourself are going to have to do that for yourself and find ways in which to do that. I hope that this has been helpful. If anybody has any other questions, please, you can leave in comments down below, or you can permanent message me. We are here to help.